What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Fast Track podcast. And by the way, if you're not familiar with me, my name's Greg Helbeck. I've been a full-time real estate investor for over almost 8 years now. The way that I've been able to grow my business is actually through hard money loans. I've done over 150 flips or wholesales. I own rental properties, and I've invested in real estate on the East Coast, on the West Coast, in the Midwest, in Texas. So I've done deals all over the country. And we got a relatively big business called Velocity House Buyers. So that is my background if you're not familiar with me. So one of the ways that I've been able to grow my fix and flip operation, because now we use more private money, is by using hard money lenders and borrowing hard money. So in this video, I'm going to talk about, what is hard money and how does the process work? So I'll start with the first part, and that's what is hard money. So hard money is a term that gets thrown around a lot. And all hard money is an entity that will loan real estate investors capital, aka cash, for their fix and flip or rental project. And they look primarily at the asset, not necessarily yourself. Okay, so I'm going to cover what the hard money is, which is what I just explained. And then I'm going to talk about how does the process work, right? And then we'll cover that, and that'll be more kind of information. So that's all the hard money company is. There's a ton of companies out there. There's Kiavi, there's Lending One, there's Fund That Flip, RCN Capital, Holloman Financial out in California. If you Google hard money lender, you're not going to find a shortage of them. There's a ton of companies out there that will fund deals, and they're companies, right? They're not individuals. They are businesses that literally loan money to investors. So that is what hard money is. Generally, what they do is they do 12-month loans, which means that they give you the money for a year and you have to pay that back within a year, right? So that's how they structure. You can obviously extend if you have to for fees and whatnot, but that is what a hard money lender is. How do they work, right? That's probably a more privy question here. And it's really the process you got to understand. And the first thing you got to realize, the myth I'm going to debunk about hard money, is that you cannot borrow hard money if you don't have any money. I'm going to say that again. You cannot borrow hard money if you don't have any money yourself. And it doesn't necessarily need to be your money, but it probably should be your money. If you're flat broke, I would not be borrowing someone else's money to get a hard money loan. It's not a good idea. So what these lenders do and how they work is that they primarily look at the asset that you're trying to buy as the form of repayment. They're not looking at you as an individual or you as a company. So what they do is you get a property in contract with a seller, and then once you have a contract, you propose the deal to the lender. And what they look for is they look for what you're paying for the property. They look at your purchase price. They look at what you think the repairs are going to be. You got to provide them a scope of work. And then they're going to do their own research. They're going to look and try to figure out what that house should be worth when it's fixed up, or what it's worth in the as-is condition, depending on your strategy. So a lot of lenders, they actually order an appraisal, right? Before they give the loan, they make you pay for it, and they order an appraisal, and they usually get an ARV appraisal, which means that the appraiser is going to appraise the property if it was in really good condition. And they want to look for a big spread between the ARV appraisal and the purchase price. And then their loan amount is going to be based on a percentage of your purchase price. So that basically what that means in English is that they want to minimize their risk as a lending institution. So there needs to be a big margin of safety between the value of the property fixed up and then the purchase price, right? Because then they're going to give you a loan based on the purchase price. So hopefully that made sense. If that was confusing, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com. Say, Greg, your hard money video confused me. Explain further. Give me a specific question. I can give you a specific answer. So here's how a lot of these hard money lenders work. So when you're established, you've been around for a while, a lot of lenders will give you 90% loan to purchase, which means that in English, if you're buying a house for $100,000 and let's say it's worth $2 fixed up, they'll give you $90,000, and then the $10,000 you're going to have to bring to the table, and that's like your deposit or your down payment. So they're not going to give you all the money up front. So you got to understand that. So you got to bring some money to the table, and if obviously you're buying a property for $200,000, they're going to give you 90%. You're going to have to bring $20K to the table, right? So they're going to give you up to 90% of the purchase price. If you're brand spanking new, you've never done a deal before, they might only give you 75 to 80% of the purchase price. So you got to bring 20 to 25% of the purchase price of your own money, preferably to the closing table, so you can get that deal done. Another thing that hard money lenders are going to do is they are going to potentially loan you 100% of the construction. But the way that they do that is not like you probably think. So you think, or I thought when I first started doing this, was that they were going to just pay the contractor directly, right? Which is not the case. So when they give you the rehab money, They do that in the form of reimbursements. They give you draws. So let's say they give you 50K, right, up for your rehab. They're not going to pay the contractor. They're not going to pay you up front. They're going to make you pay the contractor. Let's say you pay your contractor $10,000 to start the job. And then when they see the work is done, because they send an inspector out there, they'll pay you back. So the point of that is you have to have that money for the rehab in your account, or you have to have someone who has that money. They're not just going to pay the contractor directly. So what I usually do, and I'm not saying I do $1 million flips, I don't do a ton of fix and flips at one time. I wholesale a lot of houses and then I'll fix and flip a few at a time. Because of that, I just pay cash for the rehabs, not because I'm a big baller shot caller, but because if I have 2 to 4 flips going on at once and my rehabs are 30 to 60 grand a pop, I can front that money myself because I'd have to front it anyway, and then I don't want to have to deal with a lender giving me a drawback, and then it's weird with the accounting. So I stay away from that personally. If I scale the fix and flip business and we don't use private money, we just use hard money, I'll have to have them do that. But you got to understand they're not going to actually give you that construction money up front. They're gonna pay you back after you pay the contractor. So what else do you need to know about hard money lenders? They usually don't care about your credit, but you shouldn't have bad credit, because if they do run your credit and you have bad credit, they're probably going to ask you some questions. And obviously, as much as you can, you want to try to have the best credit possible. So they might look at your credit. They might not look at your credit. Depends on the company. Depends on your track record. And that's another thing. The more deals you have under your belt, the more favorable terms you're going to get from the hard money lender, right? So if you've never done a deal before, you're going to get shitty terms. You're going to pay higher interest. You're going to pay higher points, and you're going to get less loan to purchase. So if you can show the lender you've done 5, 10, 15 fix and flips and you've been successful with them and they can verify that, then they're going to give you better terms. And then another thing, I don't want to make this too deep and detailed because it's just a short podcast, but the way that the hard money loans work is that you have to pay them monthly. They charge you monthly interest. So the interest you pay them every single month, just like you're paying the electric bill. So if you borrow a $300,000 loan and they charge you 10% interest, I'm just going to do some math there, paying them $2,500 a month. So you got to have that money in your account to pay them every month, because if you don't make the payments, they could foreclose. Just because you have enough money for the initial down payment and the closing costs doesn't mean you'll have the money for the monthly interest payment. So you got to make sure you have ample cash on you if you're going to borrow hard money. You don't want to not have a lot of cash and then get involved in a loan where you have to make monthly payments. And lastly, you want to understand that these are 12-month loans usually, and if you have to extend, you're going to have to pay fees to extend the loan and make it longer. They want to try to get paid back, within a year. That's usually what they go for. Obviously, the longer you have the money, the more money they're going to make, but they have investors they have to report to. And then another thing is they're going to charge you points. And what is a point? A point is just a percentage of the loan amount. So if you borrow $250,000 and they charge you 2 points, you're going to pay them $5,000 a fee for that money. Usually what they do is, instead of them giving you the money and you writing them a check back for $5,000, they deduct the $5,000 out of the proceeds they're going to give you, but they still make the loan based on that higher amount. So you end up paying them the interest anyway. It's just a little bit easier for the accounting purposes, so they net fund the loan. So those are the things you got to be aware of with hard money. Hopefully this was a helpful video, and if it was, let me know. And if you are interested in borrowing hard money, just to summarize this video, you got to have cash on you. They're not really going to look at your credit, but you always should have good credit if you can. And you need to understand that they're primarily looking at the house or the property, whatever you're buying, as the form of repayment, not you personally. So hopefully this helps. If you are in New York, San Diego, or Delaware, or Reno, Nevada, for that matter, and you want to wholesale me a property or you want to JV a deal with me, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or send me a direct message on Instagram @grego_37, and I will see you on the next REI weekly lesson. Take care.